Welcome back. We're talking NFL with the best. You know them, you love them, you hear them. You heard them for years in Nashville. Now you hear them nationally on Outkick 360. You can follow them on Twitter at Hutton, Hutton, Outkick. The great, the legendary Jonathan Hutton. Crowd went nuts right there, big boy.
What is up, Dan? Good morning to you. I have been tuned in to the last couple of interviews with PK, with Chad. It is a pleasure to be on with you, and I'm thrilled that you're a part of the Outkick Network, man. Welcome.
Well, you guys have been so awesome to me by helping me promote this mess and having me on your show. By the way, it is a great show. The Outkick Game Day is fantastic. Hey, I want to get right into a couple of things. I want to say how stupid I am because about a week ago, I'm watching the Titans and I'm saying, you know what? Tannehill is an MVP candidate. What a stupid I am.
Yeah, far from it, right?
Right.
Look, he needs to be the MVP of the team before we even start about the league. And he was not that to this point since Henry's been gone. The defense has been the MVP of the team. And to me, I don't know if you agree, there are certain positions in every sport where they can help raise the bar. If they rise to the occasion, they raise the bar of the players around them. Quarterback, by far and away, to me, is the number one position in that, where they can help out the quarterback, the wide receiver, the offensive line, whatever it might be. The quarterback does that. Tannehill's got to be that guy now without Henry, because the offense was Derrick Henry, and now it's Ryan Tannehill because they don't have much of a rushing offense. They've got to figure that part out. The problem, though, is everybody around him is banged up and injured. I made the comment last night on local TV here in Nashville that what they had yesterday reminded me of the preseason roster that they rolled out with in August because they didn't want to play anybody. And unfortunately for the Titans, they played like it was a preseason game against one of the worst teams in the league. And we've seen that now twice this year, Dan.
I'm going to get into more of that with you, but I'm curious your take across not only the AFC, but the NFC. You know, one of the things that I get a kick out of is how, man, every team is down. And then they win a game, and now every team is up, right? I mean, here in Indy, we're the worst team in football. Now we might be the best. I mean, I just get a kick out of the whole deal. The overreaction is real in the NFL, brother.
Yeah, but that's what makes it great. You know, week in and week out, things change so much. 3 weeks ago, I think it was 3 weeks ago, Kansas City was left out to the waste, with the rest of the league. Now they lead their division because the Chargers came back down to earth and Kansas City turned it on right in the nick of time, right when it counts, right? In November and December. So I look at Kansas City as a prime example of the wave. And there are a lot of NFL narratives that when we started in August, we would have been talking about Kansas City. We were certainly discussing Tampa Bay and what the Bucs have done. They'll try to avoid a 3-game losing streak tonight against the Giants. The list goes on and on here, but two prime examples, Tampa Bay and Kansas City. We were talking about them in August as Super Bowl favorites. And now fast forward to November, and it's almost gone full circle, where Kansas City now, after being the talk of, the team that has surprised us in the opposite direction, they're now back in the mix. And Tampa Bay, with one win, can right a lot of wrongs. They're still going to win their division. And you look around and go, Tom Brady's probably going to win MVP if that's the case. So I think the NFL narrative does a full 180 and a 360-degree look at all of the talk. But that's what makes it great, because we can sit here and speculate week after week and tell the story, and the league story is epic because week after week fans believe that they're cheering for the team that's going to win. All but about maybe 10 teams believe they have a chance right now, which is awesome.
I'm going to throw the Buffalo Bills in that, man. The Buffalo Bills, they looked horrible yesterday. I mean, awful. Dan,
they're not that good.
No,
they are not built for the postseason. That is the big mirage of the league this year, because they can't run the football. They're not balanced. Their defense has really tailed off. And after that strong start against some teams that, we were making fun in a way of Denver for their stretch whenever they started 3-0. There are some other examples of this, of teams winning against bad teams. Not their fault. That's just what the schedule laid out for them. Same thing with the Bills. they've gone through a stretch here where they face some playoff caliber teams and they have not fared well. And for all the talk about the playoffs going through Buffalo is going to be on a lot of road trips this postseason. And look, who can run the ball, who can defend, who can not turn it over. That's who's built for the postseason. To me, the Bills don't check any of those boxes right now. That's the big surprise. And here come the Patriots, who check all of those boxes for me.
You redraft this draft. I talk about this all the time. You redraft this draft. I think Mac Jones is the number one pick. I really do. Are you crazy about Trevor Lawrence?
I'm not crazy about him. I'm willing to give him time because he has all those traits. I think if you redrafted Trey Lance he's not in San Francisco. Mac Jones is. I think that's where the redraft would come into play. Is Shanahan would go with Mac Jones based on the poise and the moxie that Mac Jones has been playing with. And look, I raise my hand and say it didn't matter who the Jets were going to take. It was going to be a bad scenario for any quarterback that landed in New York. So Zach Wilson is, to me, I separate him from the pack because he drew the short straw and he's in New York with the Jets in a bad organization. I like Urban Meyer paired with a quarterback. I'm still willing to give that time. And I like any quarterback paired with Kyle Shanahan. Even Jimmy G, who is doing a great job by winning games out in San Francisco. So I think Mac Jones in San Fran would have been really interesting. I'm still not I'm not out on Trey Lance by any means. But I think if we redrafted, Jones is probably the third quarterback, not the first. And that's just being realistic with the fact that Jacksonville had a year and a half to prep for that Trevor Lawrence pick. And, with what's going on in New York, if Mac Jones is in New York, he's not doing what he's doing in New England.
Yeah, a lot of people, and maybe you believe this, I kind of do. A lot of people put Mac Jones' success on Belichick and his system. I get that, but you still got to make the throws. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. And look, he's not asked to do a whole lot, but that's what you look for in a rookie. Like Brady wasn't asked to do a whole lot when he came off the bench his first year. My point on the Patriots and what a lot of people have overlooked, they were ridiculed in the offseason for being the big spenders. They spent $175 million in free agency money this offseason. So it's not like they suck. First off, they got some players back who opted out for COVID, and they have a rookie quarterback. Okay. They need to run the football. Okay. But beyond that, I think we looked at the Patriots of last year, comparing them to 2021 with a rookie quarterback and thought, okay, he's in a battle with Cam Newton. And then whenever they made the decision not to go with Cam Newton and they released Newton, they went all in with Mac Jones. That's when you knew that whatever Jones had done behind the scenes was good enough for Belichick to sign off on and say, he can lead our offense and we're going to improve week to week. There's going to be some rocky roads, and they start 2-4. Everyone wrote them off. I was one of them. I did not think they were going to be a playoff caliber team because I thought they were going to beat up some opponents along the way and then take their lumps along the way. And they have been able to flip the switch, and they found a groove now. They can run the football. Mac Jones is protecting the football as a rookie. That's important. He's not seeing ghosts out there. And their defense is really, really good because they got a lot of players back. They upgraded in free agency. Matthew Judon is paying off in free agency now. That's where I think we overlook the Patriots is they jumped in an offseason and took advantage of the fact that the salary cap dropped, and a lot of teams were not ready for that. And the Patriots just happened to be in a situation where they could spend money. So instead of bidding against 13 teams, they were in bidding wars against 3 or 4. And they said, why not spend now? And it's so far, it's paid off for them.
What's interesting about that here in Indianapolis, when Bill Polian was running it, he's like, yeah, you don't go into free agency. You just don't do it. So he maybe would take one. Booger McFarland, everybody around here says, helped them win a Super Bowl, and he did. But now we're seeing last year, obviously, Tampa Bay, 2 pretty good free agents, and Brady and Gronkowski. But your point is, or at least I'm taking from your point, football is different now. Free agency isn't, the scarlet letter. You know what I mean? It's not. You gotta be involved in it. It seems like.
Well, you have to identify the players that fit your system, and I think Belichick is great at that. Right? Like he is perfect at knowing who is a part of that Patriots system. And I think the Titans are beginning to be that type of team. But recently they've had some swings and misses on some free agents. So they want to become that. Everyone's pointing to New England as being a part of that whole system where you insert a player and it works because you've identified the character traits of what makes a New England Patriots player. The Steelers have been doing this for years too. So as long as you're good at identifying those guys, I don't mind going out and spending big money on a free agent. The difficult part, though, is the system of the NFL is set up where you get to really know a player in the draft. In free agency, you don't really know these guys all that well because especially the top end guys, you have to jump in and know whether or not you're going to bring them in within a span of about 48 hours when that open recruiting window begins to when the actual signing day is. You have to figure out some things fairly quickly on whether you're in or out on a player. And the Patriots are really good at that. They're good at making trades in regards to this and upgrading their roster in that angle. And look, whenever they made the trade for Stephon Gilmore and sent him to Carolina, they were 2-4 at the time. And now you look back on what they've done defensively since then, and it's remarkable. They do a great job with what they do.
All right, I got some hot takes for you to react to. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
It is the best story not being talked about in the NFL, what Arizona has been able to do without Kyler Murray.
Yes, I mean, I'm with you on that. It's remarkable what they're doing without Kyler Murray. Colt McCoy, Dan, is showing why backup quarterbacks get paid a boatload of money as well.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
He threw for 335 yards, something like that yesterday, 2 touchdowns. Kyler Murray's going to come back and he's going to look back on what they've done and think, well, we'll just pick up right where we left off. They lost 1 game with Murray, the game where he got hurt, and they've only lost 1 game since. And they win by 10 over the Seahawks in a game where they go on the road in Seattle with Colt McCoy. And the Seahawks fans, known for being one of the loudest fan bases in the league, if not the loudest, it's them or Kansas City, boo the Seahawks off the field because they were so bad against Arizona. Arizona is really good right now at being versatile. When they first started, we saw them firsthand here in week 1. Pass heavy, very pass heavy offense. Over the course of the last 10 weeks, they have now evolved into an offense that can run the football and can run it effectively with Connor and others. Their defense gets after the quarterback and they can cover. And when they get Murray back, they've got a run threat and a pass threat that is one of the most electrifying quarterbacks right now in the NFL. They are going back to my point earlier about who's built for the postseason. Arizona is built for the postseason. They don't turn the football over, and they can beat you in a multitude of ways. And what they've done, Dan, it's a great point because with Colt McCoy, you look around and go, okay, yeah, they just need to get Murray back healthy, and they're still in it for their division. It's been the opposite. They've turned to other leaders across their roster, and even though they're only scoring 23 points a game, they're still winning those games because they can rely on their defense and their run game.
Yeah, they threw it 11 times for 11 catches. And Rondale Moore, a kid from here at Purdue, I absolutely loved. Man, I love that kid. All right, the Colts will make the playoffs.
It's going to be tough. I will say yes because I like the way that they're playing, but I'll give you my one reservation with this. They're built for this time of year because of Jonathan Taylor, Dan, but they have the Bucs this week at home. They have the Patriots, I think, in 2 weeks after they should slap around Houston in 2 weeks, and then they play the Patriots. The Cardinals will have Murray back. They still have Arizona to play. The Raiders can throw it all over the yard, so I would not count them out, even though I don't think they're making the postseason. And here's the other big thing. They cannot lose to bad teams the way the Titans have done. The Titans have afforded themselves the ability to lose to the Texans and to the Jets because they swept the Colts for just the 3rd time since the AFC South has been formed. The Colts can't lose again. Like they have to beat Houston. They have to beat Jacksonville, and they can. But here's my one big reservation. I like everything about Indy except for Carson Wentz. Do I trust Carson Wentz to not screw one of those games up that they have to win? Because he's going to have to step up and make some big throws in the fourth quarter of these games because they're not blowing out anyone. These are going to be tight, nail-biting games where it's going to come down to the kicking game and it's going to come down to Wentz getting them into field goal position. And with that in mind, I think they sneak in because there are teams above them. For instance, the Steelers, they lose last night. Their stretch run, the Pittsburgh stretch run is brutal. So they're one game, I think, above Indy right now. They're going to drop back in my crystal ball. Indy moves up, and that puts them one game out of the playoffs. Can Wentz win them one game? If he can, they're going to make the postseason as a 7 seed.
All you got to do is beat teams like yesterday, 41-7, and you don't have to worry about Wentz. What the hell? Just,
hey, that is few and far between in this league.
I know.
Yeah.
And you know what? In Indy, I'm telling you, House of Horrors is in Jacksonville. It is. Last year, 1-15. Who'd they beat? The Colts, 1-16. All right. There are no great teams in the AFC. Wide open in the AFC.
I agree. There are no great teams right now. But this is when the great teams begin to make their move. Because the last 2 Super Bowl champions did not get rolling until right about now, right around Thanksgiving, a week or two before. The Buccaneers, as we well know, they were 7-5 every time they're on TV. The broadcasters bring this up. They're 7-5. They didn't lose again. 2019, the Chiefs, 6-4 at the time, did not lose again. The NFL is about who's hot at the right time. So which of these AFC teams are going to get healthy and are going to start making a push for the postseason at the right time? Kansas City is doing that. New England is doing that. The Chargers got back on track last night in a tough division. So the Ravens are another team that consistently win tight games. The question is, do you have to be great in order to win this year? Because there's not, one or two great teams right now in the league, as we would classify. They're in the NFC, Green Bay and Arizona. Tampa Bay could stake a claim at that too. I lost a little bit of that greatness touch, that description with Dallas yesterday in Kansas City, but they still have an offense that you must respect. But in the AFC, I'm with you. I don't label any team as great, but that doesn't mean they can't rise to the occasion. And unfortunately for the rest of the AFC, it's probably going to be the teams that we're used to seeing, Kansas City and New England.
Dan Mullen, I guess, finally, I don't know why finally, he was in the SEC championship game last year. My first call is Lane Kiffin. Whether he takes it or not, I don't know. But my first call is Lane Kiffin to Florida.
I would love that. Look, I love that for the SEC. Personally, I'm a huge Lane Kiffin supporter, by the way, on the show. Like I'm on board the Lane train. I would contend Lane Kiffin cannot be Lane Kiffin in Gainesville or in Baton Rouge or in Tuscaloosa. I think Ole Miss is perfect for him. I also think that he is. Wait. Let me slow you down.
Go ahead. Why is that? What's the difference in your mind?
I don't think there are as many eyeballs on him being Kiffin, being the Lane train, being Joey Freshwater in Oxford. Okay. Yeah. Like Oxford is just Oxford. Like I just think he's built for Oxford. I think there's more. I think there's a little bit more pressure on him in Gainesville, whereas you can lose a game or two more at Ole Miss and get away with it. Not that he's on board with that. Yeah, I don't know. I just think the fit in Oxford is great for Lane Kiffin. Gainesville is interesting though because he can bring a swagger and a moxie that program desperately needs right now because that's what they've lacked. Dan Mullen, I was a huge supporter of Dan Mullen. Dan, 34-15 in 4 years at Florida. The Gators are 2-9 in their last 11 games against Power 5 opponents. And here's the big kicker. He got through all the big Power 5 opponents on his schedule. And he had South Carolina, Samford, Missouri, and Florida State on the schedule whenever he had that meltdown talking about recruiting behind the podium. And I'm thinking, you're having a meltdown against a slap schedule that you have coming up where if you just win out, you're going to be 8-4 and you just point to the scoreboard and you say, you know what? We lost a couple games we shouldn't have. We're going to hit recruiting hard. We're going to get back on track. 8 wins, go to a bowl game, do whatever. And they just went off the tracks instead. And I just, to me, it was the writing was on the wall. I don't know, though, so I'm on board with Kiffin. I would call Kiffin. I think Miami will do that, too, if they end up going away from Manny Diaz. There are a couple of other coaches that every team's going to call. Matt Campbell, Mario Cristobal. Those guys are going to get phone calls. The question is, will they leave where they are? Matt Campbell has had opportunities before. Who knows what he's waiting on? Mario Cristobal at Oregon can recruit and recruit and recruit. He'd be perfect for Florida. The question is he leaving Oregon? After Kiffin, though, to me, the bar drops off on what's realistic and how many times you want to be turned down. So and Clay has mentioned this, and I agree with him. I think prior to that press conference that I was referencing about Mullen, both sides realized that it probably wasn't going to last, but at the same time, it was like a girl you were dating in college where you didn't really like her, but you didn't have another great option, so you just stayed together, where both sides knew they were going to break up at some point, but the question was when, and you didn't want to break up right now because you had no better option. That was Florida for me. I don't know who's a better coach than Dan Mullen, but I can definitely find you a coach that has a bit more moxie, swagger, and confidence going up against South Carolina and Samford than Dan Mullen gave me.
I always think, at Florida, you need somebody, or Kentucky basketball. Like Calipari's a perfect guy. You need somebody that the fan base thinks is bigger than them. Does that make sense? It's like when Billy Clyde or whatever the hell they call Billy Gillespie was there. It's like, all right, he's lucky to have us. When Calipari got there, we're lucky to have him. And I think you kind of need that at some place like Florida. I don't know. You see what I'm saying with that?
Yes. Well, let me give you one. So Chad Withrow on the show, and I don't know if he mentioned this with you last week or not. He was like, what would the narrative be if they called John Gruden at Florida and said, hey,
he did. Yes.
Gruden, hey, let's get the groomers going. What would happen if John Gruden were the next head coach at Florida? That fits the description that you just laid out for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm on board with that. They've got to have that Spurrier type guy, the Urban Meyer type guy who transcends no matter where they are the program and brings a bit more confidence to that job. Because right now, I mean, they're 6th or 7th in recruiting in the SEC, not nationally, but in the SEC for their upcoming class. I mean, they have really dropped off in that regard. And that's why Mullen was getting so much heat.
It's amazing, man. All right, last thing. Titans losing to the Texans really, really exposed the Titans as a fraud without Derrick Henry.
Not a fraud yet. That's me giving maybe two yet because they have found ways to win games except for yesterday. They've been winning ugly, and coaches hate that. You probably hate that too, as a former coach yourself. But
I just like the winning part of it, and I don't give a damn how it looked.
Well, that's what they've been doing, and they've been doing it without Henry. Their defense has been very opportunistic yesterday. No sacks, no turnovers. Tannehill now leads the league in interceptions. That cannot continue. Like he has to protect the football and be the leader on offense that knows where the ball's going, even when maybe a receiver isn't running the right route. He's got to be careful with it. And I know that's easier said than done, but the best quarterbacks figure it out, period. That's the harsh reality of the league. The best quarterbacks figure it out. Look, Carson Wentz threw for 106 yards yesterday in Buffalo, and they won. And you said the score was 41-7, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, it was a blowout. 106 yards passing. Tyrod Taylor threw for 107 yards yesterday against the Titans, and the Texans beat the Titans. It's just a crazy week in the league. I felt different about yesterday than I did the loss to the Jets. Those are the two losses that you just shake your head at and say, good teams, great teams, don't lose to terrible, pathetic organizations like the Houston Texans and the New York Jets. The realist in me says the Titans are not built to make a run in the postseason without Derrick Henry. That's a fact. But are they a fraud? No, because I do believe they're well coached. I do believe they're a hard out, and they will be able to keep games close even when they look pathetic, because of that style. They muddy the water, and they're very good at doing that when they don't have all hands on deck. And the biggest problem is, Dan, their injury situation is to a point where it's not leveling off. It continues to get worse instead of just getting better. They're not getting guys back healthy yet. Instead, they're sending more guys to the training room. A.J. Brown yesterday doesn't finish the game, leaves in the first half with a chest injury. And after that, again, it was a preseason roster. So they're not a fraud because this is a bunch of backups with a starting quarterback on offense. Meanwhile, you have a defense that's been much better than expected, and I think can hang with some of the better offenses in the league and keep a game close when it counts. And also, here's the other thing, Dan. They have a very easy schedule down the backstretch of the season. Right. So keep all that in mind. They're going to win the division. They're going to host a playoff game, and they're going to have 10, 11 wins because their schedule allowed for that after they beat a lot of good teams during a stretch where they didn't have their best players available.
I put fraud in there because it's a hot take. I didn't believe.
Yeah, I mean,
just put.
Look, fraud as in, are they the true number one team in the AFC? They're a fraud in that regard, right? Last week they're the number one seed in the AFC, and they almost had to pull the wool over the eyes to try to stay there, right? Because they're so banged up, and the thought was get the bye week in the postseason and get one game closer to Henry without having to play a game. Is Henry returning? I have no idea. Schefter says no. Rappaport says yes. We'll find out. But if he doesn't return, they're not going very far because with Henry, no matter the score, they could turn around and hand the football to him, and he could get them back within reach of the scoreboard. Yesterday, they're down 12-0, and it felt like they were panicking in a way. They're just throwing the football over because they can't run the football. They got very one-dimensional. And because of that, the Texans got into scoreboard protection mode and slowed down that game and made that game very easy on themselves. They just turned around and ran the clock.
What do you got on the show today?
We have Bobby Carpenter on the show. If you have not had him on, I hope you have.
We did.
If you have not had,
yeah,
he's great. And with Outkick, college football insider, we're going to talk a lot about what's going on in college football. Oregon dropping out, getting blown out. Who moves in? Where's Cincinnati in all this? Ohio State's big win. Looking forward to that. And we're going to recap, just like we did here, recap all the NFL going into what's going to be a fun Thanksgiving week.
Love Thanksgiving week. At Hutton Outkick, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, my man, thanks. Appreciate you very much. All you guys.
Thank you, Dan. Really appreciate you as well, man.